Hey up and welcome to another episode of Last Cast, and if you join us from parts 1 and 2 of this match scenario series, this will be part 3, the final episode in the series, and also where you'll see the weigh-in and see if we've hit our target. Long story short, we've had a good first couple of, first 4 hours I should say, first 2 stints if you like, but as you'll have seen if you've watched them, if you haven't, there'll be a link in the top corner of the screen. Things haven't really gone to plan, to be fair. I've not caught as much as I'd have liked. I don't think I'm far off the target, but I think that £50 could be a bit of a challenge. So a lot of it now hinges on this last 2 hours. And as I said, we're going to fish pellet short. In terms of what I've done for this line, because we've sort of covered margin fishing in pretty much, well, God knows how many videos, to be fair, I've decided to do something a bit different and cover fishing hard pellet on a short pull at the bottom of the near shelf. So I'll quickly explain my thinking behind that. Again, with it being a deep peg, I think a lot of the fish will start to come in close, especially as time goes on and later on in the day. And especially that near side shelf can be an excellent holding area for both bream, skimmers, barbel, F1s and carp, so it gives us plenty of stuff to go for. And by fishing hard 6mm pellets, it's a bit more selective, trying to get through a lot of the smaller fish that are in the lake. So that's basically my way of thinking. Let's say we've covered margins before, so I've decided to do that. Also fishing nice and short when you need to catch a lot of weight, fishing on a top kit, catch as quick as you can really, basically. The crux of it is I don't have to ship out. I'm going to be literally lowering the rig in, so I've got 2 rigs set up and I'm ready to fish immediately. Going to be following up with a few hard pellets over the top, maybe cupping a few in, and I might even use a cad pot, say if I think accuracy is a bit more important. But as I say, that'll bring me onto the rigs that I'm using. I've set 2 up, and as you can see, we've got plenty of depth. We've probably got the best part of 5.5, 6 feet deep there, which compared to the rest of the lake's very deep. Most of it round here, you're looking at 2.5, 3 foot, so plenty of depth, and that's why I've set up 2 rigs. In terms of their construction, they're identical. Drennan yellow bungee at the top end, Dacron connector up there, nice soft elastic, and like I say, when you're fishing on the top kit, if I don't really want to be adding sections if I can, so a hollow elastic's preferable to say doubled up solid. Plenty of stretch in it so I can hook the fish, they'll swim out of the peg, and I'll be able to just loose feed a few pellets over the top. So that's my thinking behind using the hollow elastics. In terms of the main line, that's 015 reflow power, and both rigs feature a Garbolino DC23 pencil float. As you can see, it's flat calm, no movement on the water, and these are lovely slim sensitive patterns with a decent bristle, so I can get away with using decent sized pellets like 6mm. Hollow bristle as well, nice and short, so as I say, lend themselves really well to pellet fishing. If there was a bit of tow on the water or a bit of wind, I'd go for a bodied pattern float, something like a DC15 or something like that with a wire stem, but as I say, I can get away with pencil floats, really nice for lifting and dropping. Both rigs, as I say, are the same in construction. The only difference is one of the floats is a 0.4 and one is a 0.8. When we come down to the shotting, as you can see on the 0.8 rig, much more positive, all spaced within about a foot above the hook length. Going down from number 8 stots, number 9s to number 10s as the final droppers. On the 0.4 rig, I should say, those are spaced out at about sort of 2.5 inch intervals, 2 inches, something like that, so I can lay the rig in a little bit more, a bit nicer against the shelf and try and pick up a few finicky fish like the F1s. But if it turns out there's lots of barbel and carp down there, a 0.8's nice and heavy, nice and stable, and those big fish aren't going to disturb the hook bait too badly. And then that just brings us down to the hook lengths. In both cases, it's 013 Guru N gauge, 6 inches, down to a size 18 Guru LWG with a little bait band on there. Exactly the same on both rigs. If I knew it was just purely carp and big barbel down there, stuff like that, I'd use a Guru MWG as a hook, but the LWG, because it's a lighter wire gauge, there's F1 smaller fish in here, so I want to be able to be fairly open to catching various species rather than just trying to target big carp and things like that. So I say that's about as simple as it gets really for this kind of approach. All I've done is kicked off that area of the peg by potting in, say, 20, 25 6mm pellets, and that's all I'm fishing, a standard 6mm fishery course pellet. Again, I've got my usual mixture that you'll have seen on the method feeder, different hook bait choices, just in case I think that might catch me a couple of extra fish, but most of the work's going to be done on these standard 6mm pellets. Again, everything feeds on them, nice robust hook bait, so get plenty of attempts at lifting and dropping. So as I say, dead simple stuff, and we'll crack on and hopefully now get towards that £50 target. As I say, not sure how far off we are, but we definitely have some catching up to do, so we'll crack on now, keep feeding the peg and show you what we're going to catch. Right, so I'm going to go for the first chuck on this line. As I say, I've prepared it a little bit by feeding some bait, but I'll run you through a few key points with what I'm doing. In terms of where I've plumbed up, it's really nice and hard on the bottom there, but it's very rocky. There's loads of large sort of lumps in the sort of layout of the lake bed there. So I've found a little area where it's sort of a divot to fish in, so hopefully some of the bait will congregate there. In terms of how I'm laying the rig in, I'm laying it out in front of me and holding the float just up above the shelf, an indication there straight away. And just letting that pellet swing in to where it should be, because we're fishing in an area, there's a fish on straight away, fishing in a tiny little area, so it's crucial with accuracy. So I'm fishing in an area probably about that size. And you can see with the hollow elastic, the fish can just plod around. That's exactly what we're needing from this line. Just flicking a few pellets. And as I say, I'll keep reiterating how I'm going about laying the rigging, because the crux of pellet fishing is accuracy. And especially when it comes to fishing hard pellets like this on an uneven bottom and a slope, you've got to be as accurate as humanly possible. Nice little fish to start off with. Tiny little common carp by the looks of it, that one. Again, some of the F1s here are hard to tell from the carp because they're lovely shapes, but that's gorgeous colours on it. Getting popped in the net. Like I say, the key thing is when you're trying to build a weight like this is speed, so because we're fishing nice and close, just a case of making sure that hair's coming off the hook in the right place. Occasionally they can fold round themselves a little bit. And I can very quickly just swing this rig out and present it back. Again, in terms of your far bank marker here, you've got to pick a very small one that you can see clearly, but sort of I'm using the corner of an aerator to give you an idea. Just lower that rig back in. There we go, fish on straight away. Feels like a bigger fish this already. And as I say, it's all about that accuracy. Again, I'm not too fussed with my loose feed about accuracy. If I am, I can switch to a cad pot. But it's all about getting that rig presented correctly with fine bristles and pellet fishing. You'll see how that pellet reads on the float. With hard pellets, they obviously weigh more than expanders, so they will register on the bristle. So I plumb up to absolute dead depth to the point where the actual pellet will register on the float. So you've got to spend plenty of time doing it, and especially on an area like that. Probably took me about 10 minutes or so at the start of the session to plumb up that one little area of the peg. But as you can see, it's well worth it. We've had 2 fish in 2 drops. I don't want to feed too many pellets down there, or loose feed too many, I should say. It's another nice little carp, this. Because I don't want to draw the fish up in the water with it being that deep. Stunning colours on that carp. You can see absolutely gorgeous little fish to catch. Fantastic weight builders as well. And you can see with the hollow elastic as well how easily the fish just gets hooked, swims out of the peg, and that's it. Not going to disturb any more fish down there. And again, that pellet's good to go for another one. You can see if I start missing bites, getting foul hookers and things like that, then that's when I'll switch to the 0.8. But this 0.4 nicely replicates how the hook baits, or how the feed baits, falling through the water and settling on the bottom nicely. And quite often with a rig like this, as I've been doing so far, is you'll get the bite as soon as that pellet touches bottom. Not when it's off bottom, not when it's been on the bottom for a while, but like that. As soon as it's touched the bottom, float goes under. Again, because I'm not feeding large amounts of bait, I've put down a little bed and just trickling in 4 or 5 pellets at a time now. There's lots of competition for those pellets. Feels like a slightly bigger fish, this. Again, could be a barbel, could be a bigger carp. Just got to be very careful because it is one of the LWG hooks. Nice gauge to it, but it is a bit lighter than what I'll use for proper big carp fishing, say the MWG. This is definitely a bigger fish. I don't think it's a barbel by the way it's fighting. So I'm just going to have to take my time with this a little bit. One thing that I have done and will mention is that I've pegged my nets back behind the peg and underneath, because obviously when you're catching barbel, especially in deep water, for some reason they do love to go under your keep nets. The other thing is my keep nets then aren't disturbing my swim that I'm fishing now. Obviously it's only on a top kit, so 2.6 metres out, and that's pretty much where the end of your keep nets would be. So I'm just having to steer this fish round the keep nets, and luckily he hasn't snagged me in them yet, as hard as he's trying to. And again, while I'm playing this fish, just trickling 1 or 2 pellets in, right over the top of where I've been fishing. Really is trying to go for my keep nets. That actually is a really good barbel, that. And go just hooked on the underside of the mouth, so we'll just slip the hook out of him. And that's a cracking fish. No wonder I couldn't get his head up. Like little missiles, these barbels, so we'll get him popped in the net and hopefully have 1 or 2 more. Again, just going to change that hook bait this time. It's always important that you have absolute confidence in your hook bait, especially when you're fishing with pellets and you've not got a lot of loose feed down there. So you need to make sure your pellet's not only in perfect condition, but also because it's presented perfectly. Because those fish probably have a choice of say 10 or 15 pellets down there, and you don't want yours to stick out like a sore thumb because it's either broken down or not presented properly. So once again, I'll just run you through the procedure of how I'm getting this rig into the peg. Swinging the pellet out because it's nice and heavy in line with the far bank marker. Holding the float up and waiting for the bulk shot really to get beneath the float, and that's why I use a strung out bulk for this style of fishing. Little roach has just picked up on the way down. Then when it seems to be underneath it, the pellet's obviously going to be further away than the bulk as it starts to swing in. Lower the bulk down, the pellet should just settle nicely against the shelf. Again, if you don't think it's gone in correctly and you're unhappy with how the bristle's sitting, then take it back out and reset the rig. As I say, it's crucial with pellet fishing that you have that pellet set perfectly. Then just 2 or 3 pellets over the top and that's fishing. See, the bites aren't exactly sail away bites, they're little sharp digs, and those are what you need to be striking at as the fish quickly sucks in the pellet. It's almost, especially on high pressure venues, it's where they're testing the pellet, almost the resistance on it. Missed that one that time. And if your float's too far out of the water, or using too heavy of a float, too heavy of a hook, you'll miss a lot of bites. When you get it right like this, you'll hit nearly every single bite. Just waiting for that pellet to come under the float. And there we go, that's on straight away. Amazing the difference it makes, isn't it? Like just putting the rig in properly, waiting for that pellet to settle, float goes immediately. And that's what I say about taking plenty of time when you're setting up, getting the rigs absolutely perfect, getting them dotted down using that little back shot that I haven't mentioned behind the float, so it's just the bristle supporting the pellet. As I say, this can be the result. If you put the rig in correctly, it's a bite to chuck. This one's going mad, is this fish. Try and get him under control. It's one of the F1 ghost carp. Again, really chunky fish, that one. I can barely get my hands around him. And these especially are the finickiest fish to catch, these F1s. If your pellet doesn't go in properly, they won't touch it. But if you get it in correctly like that, you see just how sharp and positive the bite is. Like I say, you'll hook every fish right in the top lip or corner of the mouth. So again, I'm happy with how that pellet's looking, taking all the rubbish off the line, making sure the shot are where they need to be, or the stots I should say in this case. And then like I say, by just loose feeding sort of 4 or 5 pellets, rather than putting in heaps, you're going to cut out all sort of the fizzing in your peg that you might get and create lots of competition for not a lot of bait. And again, just resulting in quick bites and positive bites at that. Going to be an absolutely like proper OCD with how that rig's going in, if you like, making sure that it is in that little divot that I was explaining about. Another indication there, because if it's not there, then say if I go sort of 2 inches to the right of it, then it's about 1.5 inches shallower, and again that means that the line's not going to be tight from the pellet to the pole tip, or the float tip, sorry, so you're not going to see the indication as it happens. So again, that's what it all comes down to when you're plumbing up for dead depth. It's making sure that pellet is tight to the pole float tip, so as soon as the pellet moves, your bristle will register it. If you don't do that, then it results in foul hooked fish and missed bites. Likewise, in terms of the distance I'm fishing out as well, just missed that bite because I wasn't concentrating properly. I was going to explain how I basically have the top kit sat. As you can see, I've got it pretty much sat off the end of my knee, then holding it over the top. So I can't really fish any further without that, the butt of the top kit touching my knee. So again, it's within sort of 1/2 inch distance wise. Again, I almost can't begin to stress just how important accuracy is in this style of fishing. This feels like a barbel, this. No, it's an F1. Not particularly great at guessing what fish they are, but say, cutting out all the silverfish now, and it's purely carp, F1s and barbel that we're catching. It's a bit small to go in with the larger fishes, that one. You can see just how quick I can be in and out as well. We've pretty much been able to film this in real time from the minute I've started on this this line, to be fair. The other good thing with it as well is just how cheap of a way of fishing it is. Hardly using any bait whatsoever, and just being more careful in terms of using the correct rigs, hooks, lines, all various other things, and making sure I'm nice and accurate. You can get away with probably using, on some days when it's fishing a bit harder, a couple of 100 pellets will pretty much do you for several hours. As long as your presentation's good and you can get the competition in your peg. So it's very easy to build a weight fishing like this. At the moment as well, there's no real need for me to go onto that 0.8 rig. So you're just holding the float out the water, waiting for the bulk to come in. As the pellet starts to come in towards the shelf, drop the float in on top of it. And just tempt the float up the shelf just a little bit till the bristle shows. That was another bite there. Right, so after that initial run there, I've just had a couple of daft bites, and it seems like the fishing's gone a little bit funny for a second. So what I'm going to do is just try and focus the fish back down into that area. So I'm just going to take some water out of the casters and put in, as I say, a handful of pellets. It does seem like they're feeding quite well today. So I'm just going to put in a little bed of feed. As you can see, by putting the water in, it just makes sure they all sink straight to the bottom. And then again, just being dead accurate putting these in. And what you'll see is they go pretty much straight to the bottom because they've had a little bit of chance to soak straight through the surface tension, and with coarse pellets like that, they're nice and heavy. And what I will do is follow that straight over the top with a rig. I'm going to use the heavier 0.8 rig just to see if the fish down there quickly put their heads down and start feeding. And as I say, with a rig like this, I can bomb the bait straight to the bottom, straight to where they should be feeding, because I'm not really trying to catch them through the water. So again, picking out a decent pellet, making sure the band's sat absolutely centrally and that the hook is sitting nice and proud. Exactly the same principle. Just getting that rig into position. I think that one's just swung a bit too close to the bank. Let's just lift the rig out. If you're not happy with it, make sure you reset it. And that pellet now starts to register on the bristle. See with this rig, although I've got it dotted nicely down, there we go, I've got a little bit more bristle showing. As you can see, it's an instant reward. Putting that feed, heavier rig straight over the top of it, and right away we've caught. See, once he's calmed down. Nailed right in the top lip, another nice little F1. Like I say, with these match scenario videos that we're doing at the moment, is sort of just to try and demonstrate how I go about thinking about what's going on in my peg and try and managing what's going on, trying to catch the most fish. And little things like that, trying to go for a heavier rig because you've tried to bomb some bait down to the bottom. Like I say, rewards us with an instant fish, whereas we'd still probably be waiting for that other 0.4 rig to settle by the time that one was actually in the net. And when you're trying to build a weight, it's all about speed and catching the better quality fish in your peg. So a decision like that, like I say, has resulted in an extra pound in the net already. What I will do for the time being is not actually loose feed over the top. I'm just going to leave that bait, say 20-30 pellets that I've put in, just to settle. And I can be absolutely certain then that my hook bait's directly in or on top of a nice little pile of feed that's gone down. So occasionally I will just lift and drop, but you do have to be a bit careful of that when you're fishing on the slope, especially with lighter rigs. They can drift a bit too much. Today there's absolutely no movement on the water, so I can get away with doing that. But on some days lifting and dropping is pointless. You'll end up putting your hook bait on a shallower patch of water or a little bit of debris or something and ruin your presentation. So again, it's something that you've got to assess on the day, is that. And I think towards the last hour or the last half hour on this method, and what will be the last half hour of the 6-hour stint, I may well try and push the peg a bit, put in a big pot of bait, try and catch 1 or 2 bigger carp. But for the time being, we've still probably got another hour and a half left of this. So I'm going to try and work as much as I can, try and get, just pretty much try and ease out every fish that I can get out of the peg for the time being. I'll just try and chuck a couple of pellets over the top, try and drum some interest up. Again, I'm not too fussed if the pellets do drop short of the float. What I don't want them doing is going too far down the shelf, basically. Again, it's something that you can use to your advantage, is creating a little bit of noise, dropping 1 or 2 pellets in over the top of the float, especially in shallower water. That can be very effective. In deeper water like this, if you feed too much like that, you run the risk of drawing fish up off the bottom and then end up foul hooking them. So I think what I will do on this rig, actually, there's another fish on. I was going to say I might consider putting a cad pot on this heavier rig, and the stamper fish has got a bit smaller. So I think it might be an idea to feed a bit more heavily. Hook's just dropped out in the net for that one. Another little ghost F1. So I'll have one more drop on this, and then I think I'll just try, actually what I will do, so I'm making it up as I go along here a little bit, so I will put in a bit more bait. I do think a bit more bait might be a bit better for the barbel and the carp. Because like I say, those F1s, especially in here, can go through a hell of a lot of bait really quite quickly. So again, I'll probably put in 30 pellets or so, let them soak for a second, and just deposit those into the peg. Like I say, while I'm waiting, I'm going to get a cad pot out and just put it on that heavier rig, just to see a bit later on if that makes a difference. But we'll have another go on the 0.4 rig, I should say, the lighter rig. Just see if that works a treat for us. And it's all about giving yourself these kind of options, especially when the fishing's hard or a lot of cold water's gone in, as it has in this case. It seems to have just knocked the fishing off a little bit. They don't seem to be very settled compared to what they can be. Indication straight away. Could be a few small fish down there. Which again, if there are, that's when it comes down to putting in a larger pot of pellets. Try and feed them off a little bit. There we go, straight away on the lighter rig. This feels like a better fish. That's another F1. But again, instantly on that lighter rig, as they're watching the bait settle. It's one of those things you've got to try and sort of use your imagination to work out what's going on under the water. To try and give you an idea of what rig's going to work best. Again, not big F1s these, not the sort of weight builders that we're after. But again, as long as we keep catching those at regular intervals, then we should start to get towards that 50-pound target quite nicely. Right, so as you can see there, we're getting to a nice little run of F1s. So what it's time to do now, as I say, I've pretty much explained everything I can in relation to the method that I'm fishing here. So I think it's now time to just crack on, try and work our way towards that 50-pound target. We'll probably keep you updated towards the end, unless we start to hook a few bigger fish, and we'll keep you posted as the peg develops. And that's another one on now. Skimmer this time. So we'll crack on putting fish in the net. As I say, hopefully we'll get nicely towards that 50-pound target. Right, so we're coming towards the end of the 6-hour stint and the end of this final 2-hour segment as well. Last 5 minutes left, and pretty much it's been fairly steady on this line as well. Again, it's been one of those where the fish have turned up in a few numbers, then disappeared as soon as a few have been caught, and it's been quite hard to sort of keep them coming at any level of consistency. Another indication there. So on this line especially, I've had to alternate between, say, big potting, say 20 pellets in, fishing a heavy rig, and when the fish start to be a bit finicky, then going on to the lighter rig, starting to lose feed when the fish seem to have disappeared after catching a few, and sort of repeating that process, trying to draw a few fish in, concentrate them on the deck, then try and catch them, pick them off on the heavy rig first, and then on the lighter rig like this. Like I say, it's been a really enjoyable session, to be fair. Not been easy, and like I say, I'm not 100% sure whether we've reached the 50-pound target, but it's been a fantastic little session. And really interesting, like I say. A lot of commercials you can go and just catch fish on pellets all day long, whereas here you're having to work a lot of things out. Right, and there's another fish now on the short pole. So we've only got a minute or so left, so I think we'll probably call this one the last of the session. See, nice stretch in that yellow Drennan bungee. Doesn't feel like a massive fish, possibly an F1, not entirely sure. It's been hard to predict them really, because we've had such a mixed bag on that short line, which can quite often be the case. It's always important to sort of make sure that you're well gunned on that line, because you can end up catching some decent stamped fish. It looks like a nice little common carp, no, actually an F1, that one. Nice little fish to end on. Again, decent little weight builders these, and we've had quite a few of those today, but be interesting to see whether we've made that 50-pound target. I'm not entirely sure. I'd be surprised if we have, but we've caught in sort of spells and had plenty of different species, a few wide, a few decent carp, plenty of skimmers and roach as well, so it'd be interesting to see what we've caught. So we'll get him popped in the net and conclude the session at that. As I say, what we'll do is we'll weigh the fish in. We've got them split 50-50 between sort of smaller fish below a pound, thereabouts, the larger fish. So we'll get those weighed in, see if we've hit that 50-pound target that we're after, and like I say, then we'll summarise the session and explain what's really happened. So we'll crack on with that now and get them weighed in. Right, so that's the first net out, 26.8, so we're halfway there. As you can see, that's the one with the proper carp in it, and a couple of the bigger barbel as well, and some of the bigger F1s. So we'll get these popped back and weigh the second net in, which I think's got a few more fish in it. So we'll get these popped back and see what we've got in the second net. Right, and there's our silvers bag, 34.9 there. So we've about £10 over our target today, well pretty much £10 even over the target. Fantastic bag of fish, as you can see, plenty of skimmers in there, a few wide, a few roach as well, real mixed bag, so a fantastic result, and a couple of the smaller F1s in there as well. As I say, it's been really hard work today, and if someone had said at the start of the session or halfway through to me you're on target for £60, I'd have been really surprised. But it just goes to show, if you keep ticking over, keep bringing the changes, just keep on putting the odd fish in the net, then you can end up with a fantastic bag of fish. And like I say, this is just half of what we've caught, as we've already put the cart back, and we'll show you those as well. But as I say, fantastic day's sport here at Sunrise. Hopefully, if you check out the other episodes 1 and 2 of this match scenario series, there'll be plenty of tips there for you to pick up on, for both method feeder fishing, shallow fishing with casters, and then finally fishing a short line with hard pellets. So as I say, fantastic day at Sunrise today, great result, and we've really enjoyed it. So stay tuned, there'll be plenty more match scenarios in the future hopefully, and as I say, fantastic results. So as always from Last Cast, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.